around any way it's comfortable for you.
Okay.
We can go get the youth room couch. If you really want to get comfortable.
Does anyone need air, by the way?
It's on.
Oh, is it on? Okay.
How's it going, everybody?
Good.
How are you?
Good, really good. So tonight, what we wanted to do was we're going to tell you a story. And because it's a Brandon Willett testimony with Heidi Willett, you're going to hear some crying from the man. But that's, obviously you guys have been around me enough to know that that might happen at some point in time. But Mike has tissues. Thank you, my brother, for bringing in tissues. That's good. So when Rob asked us to do this, he asked us to both choose a verse. But in talking, Heidi and I spoke, and we had just gone through 2 Corinthians with the college not too awful long ago before we started Ezra. And in 2 Corinthians, Paul goes through the whole thing, basically trying to be really, really nice. And the people that were there at the church in Corinth at the time wanted him to basically, at the time, they were like supposed to boast and share about all the great things that they did, because in the hopes of that, you'd have people come to your church. Well, Paul refused the whole time, refused. Until like the last couple of chapters where he says, fine, but if I'm going to do it, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to boast in the things that the Lord has done in my life. And he goes through and he basically lists these things that could only have been done by God. And so as my wife and I talked, that was how we wanted to share, because that's what has happened. So we tried to put a timeline together, so my wife will probably end up helping me with when things happened, as they actually happened. And I will tell you how I perceive them as happening in the Lord, I hope. And so that's how we'll probably end up going. I'm not going to tell you what happened today until we get there. I want you to hear the story. So, and you can, of course, pipe in anytime. So we went to a Fuge camp, a centrifuge camp with the youth years ago. I don't know what year it was.
2008.
2008. See, I told you that was going to happen. So just be ready for it. So I will speak, I'll defer, and sometimes she'll speak, and I will never defer, and or the other way around, whatever. Anyway, so 2008, we went to a Fuge camp, and we were not intending to do anything but what we were there to do, which was be with the youth. And we loved Joanne at the time. We did it for quite a few years. But in that, there was a time where they were talking about missions, and we both kind of looked at each other after the sharing about missions, and we're like, "You think what I'm thinking?" Yeah. Okay, so I guess we're supposed to do this now. What do we do next? And it was kind of strange because Matt and Justine had just come along, right? And we didn't know who to tell or who to share it with in the kind of immediate moment, because we didn't really know Matt and Justine all that much. But we couldn't wait to just share with the kids, because they had been with us for a long time, these kids, and we did. And so we shared with them. And then what did we decide? We came back and we realized that I needed to go to school. And we started that whole thing. So that took a little while. I think
Took a little longer in the process. We thought we had submitted the application and things,
right.
just didn't quite happen in the time frame. But about a year later, it was the fall of 2009 is when we actually started.
Started going to the seminary there, yeah. Because she's right. It took a while for them. We didn't know where the application was at one point. It somehow got lost. Which okay. But you reminded me of something the other day that we never thought about, and that was, I had gotten the job at CEI the week before I went to Centrifuge. That job allowed me the monetary needs that we had to have to go to school. So in the scheme of looking back, and so I want to take you through the whole story. In the scheme of looking back, when my wife and I looked back, we realized that God had put in place the money that we needed for me to do what He wanted before He had actually called us to do it. A week before. And we didn't even know it at the time until we're like, and this was actually, to be honest with you, this was what? This week? That we actually realized, because I had always thought.
But we knew that God, provided the money for school.
But for some reason in my brain, I'm thinking, we got called, and then, look, I have this money that I got this new job. But for some reason, we're thinking that somehow the job happened after, like as though God called us, and then, look, I'm going to provide. But it was even better than that. It was like, I've provided, and you don't know I'm going to call you yet, but I've already provided. So that kind of happened. So, okay, so we were talking about 2009. So how would you perceive starting school and stuff for us?
first, of course, it's exciting, and then you get into the midst of it. And the one thing about online studies is it's like 90% more reading than being in the classroom, and so there was the moments where the excitement wore off.
There was times where I had her read because it was just too darn much. I actually had to go buy
Cheater glasses.
Yeah, to buy, the thin glasses thing so that I could read, because after 2 hours worth of reading, my eyeballs felt like I had sandpaper behind them. So I would go and buy those, and that didn't help, and Heidi had to read. Of course, it didn't help I took theology first.
So I
Hindsight.
did not understand, but I could read it. So
Hindsight.
and another exciting thing that happened, with starting school, he was down there and talking to one of the professors and realized, okay, well, I'm working and I have ministries and I'm taking schools, so he gave him this genius idea. Well, you have college kids now, so why don't you just teach them what you're learning? And so the first...
And he said that, and then Rob said the same thing too. So Dr. Durst and Rob ended up saying the same thing.
So the first 2 years they got, theology and Old Testament, and so that was kind of...
Basically, I think I should have a seminary degree.
So yeah, when you look at the college, the early 20 age students in here, I would include John and Danielle in that. They were in there, and Mike and Caitlin. The rest of them apparently have moved on to other greater things in other places and churches and whatnot. But those kids, those adults now, have seminary theology. Just so you know, adults. Anyway, let's see. So
we were doing school, and the one thing that was really awesome about it, and it's only a God thing, is we're almost through. The end of the semester will be the 4th year of school, and the one thing that's been awesome about it is every time he gets discouraged and ready to quit, I'm like, no, press on. And every time I'm like, you're done, I can't take anymore. And he's like, no, we're going to press on.
God has he's not only set everything up, he's really kind of dragged us along. People talk about carrying, the whole footsteps picture. Oh, he carried me. No, it's more like, get over here. I don't know what you're doing right now, but this is the way you're going to go. And sometimes he takes a more active approach than I would realize, but she's exactly right. I'm going to be honest, more often than not, it was me who was discouraged. It was tough at times, and tough where, I don't know, not everybody's gone through the same stuff, and some people may have gone through it worse than me, but sometimes when you're asked to do something by God, and the last thing you remember is 3 years ago, and nothing's happened, you're like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Am I certain that I heard right? Am I making things up? And I'm telling you, that happened on more than one occasion, where I was not certain, and then I had to be reminded by what God had told us, because that is solely what kept us going, is only what God had said. And it's got to be the last thing He told you, not some kind of random I think. That's why we've got to go with certainty. I learned that very specific lesson today, my wife and I did, about certainty. We've got to certainly know the will of God. And we'll get there later, but yes, my wife is so right, where there are times where I'm like, I'm done. I'm so done.
And he never once ever allowed us to be discouraged at the same time to give up. That he always kept one of us.
If it were left to ourselves and not him, obviously we wouldn't be standing here sharing the goodness of what God has done, boasting on His sovereignty and control and power, and setting things up. And the banner, my favorite thing about God that I like to just say is, the Lord's my banner. I imagine an army where the banner goes before, and everybody knows, and He goes in front, and that, I love that, because I have so seen that. I've totally seen that. Where everywhere I go, it seems like He's already been there. Oh, there He is. He's over there already. Yep, I'll be there in a second when I finally get my feet moving, but I see you're over. It's funny, and I love that. So, anyway.
Another awesome thing that happened along the way is God used this mission video to get a hold of our hearts and get our attention.
Yeah.
Because this man always said, the one thing I will never do is senior pastor. So God said, okay, I got you now, and I'm going to take you along this journey. And then along the way, it's been awesome how God has changed his heart towards a pastoral position, because it was only through God changing his heart that that is where we have kind of journeyed along.
Yeah, most definitely. And I wouldn't say that he somehow changed his mind. I really fully believe that he did it because of my inadequacies, my not paying attention. He had to use something to get me to say okay, just so he could show me what he actually wanted. Because I wouldn't say okay. I was saying no. And so he used this to get me into his position so that he could then show me what he really, really wanted. And again, that is by God, because left to my own devices, I would have said no. But through it, he has really changed my heart. The biggest thing about what is the issue for me is I never thought that I could love people like you're supposed to when you're a pastor. Because I'm going to tell you, that's what it takes. And you have to look at him too and realize that that's the same. It takes that. You know, one time I remember talking to somebody, I don't remember who it was. Who knows, could have been you. We've been married 14 years. There's a lot of stuff I've said to her that I probably don't remember I've said to her. But I think a pastor needs to have a big heart for two reasons. One is it's so big it'll get stepped on. But number two, there's a lot left. And I think that's the way God designs it to be. And I didn't think I could do that. I thought it was easier for me to deal with being a missionary because I might not have to see the same people. I'm just being honest because that's the way I thought. But why do I share this? Because it's solely because of a heart being changed, not by his own, oh, I'm going to change myself, but by God changing the desires of a person, of not just me but my wife as well. You know, I really think, I really know that that is the case of what he's done with us in terms of all this time spent. You know, it's funny. Not did I just learn about the Word of God going to seminary. I was changed by going through the Word of God.
There you go. There you go.
So let's see. So school stuff. You know, it's been it's gotten easier over the years. I would say that I probably could have made a better choice, but I was so concerned with getting into a class. I probably could have chosen something better to take first, as in instead of theology. But it's been good. Old Testament, New Testament, Christian history right now. It's pretty simple compared to that, and it's been much more fun. Plus, I've learned how to be a student again. That first semester, I was how old? Let's see, I'm 35. I was 31, and I hadn't been a student since I was about 19. And you want to talk about relearning some stuff? You almost got to relearn to read. It's that bad. And so, anyway, so things got much, much better with the ease of it all. And God gave us a lot of strength. He allowed us both, including my brother, to coach a little league team for my son, which we were blessed to minister and be with children and kids and help parents. You know, we had 2 losing teams. However, when we were done, the parents understood that our goal was not to win baseball games. It was to change the children. And they got it by the time we were done. But it certainly took some difficulties when they realized what was actually happening. But praise God, he had done some moving in people that don't go to church. And that was only because of him. Because like I said before, the time management skills that we have are nowhere near necessary to live in the kingdom of God. His time management skills are infinite because there's no time to manage.
That's a good point.
So, let's see. Where do we go from there? So, we can start now. So, here we are.
You've never looked for any.
Oh, yeah. Twice now, Galt Baptist Church has approached me for a position there.
No.
All right. Colfax. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Colfax.
See? Colfax. Twice now, Colfax has approached me for a position there. Both times in praying to my wife, and I have chosen that it was not God's desire. Either one did we go after or pursue. I've never sent a resume out or requested to work at any church whatsoever. I've been content to just follow the will of God. Because I'm telling you, this is the most important thing. If you're not going to hear anything tonight, this is the one thing I want you to hear. You have to go with the last thing he told you. For me, it was to go to school. And I should not be doing anything else other than what he told me. So I did not look anywhere. I had to be content with what he had asked me to do. So we were. So then through, obviously Rob talking with some of the gentlemen at Galt, there was a position in terms of just speaking that opened up in Galt. And they allowed me to come and to speak for 3 weeks. Down there was interesting. It was a lot of fun. when he first got down there was no worry. It was weird. Let me tell you something. It was weird. I don't know any of these people, and yet I'm totally comfortable. It doesn't sound weird to you, but more comfortable than I am with you guys. I'm telling you the truth. It's weird. It is very strange. You can ask people that have heard me speak there. My brother and my sister-in-law, my parents, and Bob and Lou and Nate and Amber, I haven't talked to them, but I know that some of the things that other people have told me when I was there was, you are very comfortable there. And like I'm telling you, it is nothing to do with me. How could it be? I don't know any of them. I still remember I don't know all their names. When they do a prayer request, this one lady, Kat, she's really cool, she sends us a prayer request, and I'm so scared because I don't know. I don't know if any of these people actually go to our church, or not. They could be like friends of friends of friends. And so I still pray for them, but I don't know if I should be driving to a hospital because I don't know who they are. And so it's very, very interesting. So anyway, so I went there for 3 weeks, and the first week, I relaxed and things are great, and then they came to me, they're like, so are you like looking for a position? Nope, not really. I didn't really come here to do that. And what about like interim? Maybe we'd have to talk. We have to talk about stuff because I live pretty far away. I have a full-time job, and there's just some stuff that might get in the way. And so they continued, and they asked again, and they're like, okay, so do you have your resume? Would you give us your resume? What resume? My resume has my work experience on it. Is that what you guys want? Well, this guy here, Rob, what am I supposed to do? That's all I could be passionate for, which they know, but what do you put on something like that? I haven't experienced that before. So I just sent them my work experience with some basic, simple things of what I've done here in this place. And so, they called us to come down there on Saturday, and we talked to the Pastor Search Committee. It was 3-4 weeks ago? Anyway, 23rd of February, however many it's
23rd, yeah.
And then I went down there, spoke with them for quite a long time. Do you think we probably went further if we hadn't basically been like, we just kept talking. Talking, and Rob makes fun of me. We're talking, and I'm expecting them to be like, okay, let's get down to doctrine. What is it you believe? Blah, 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 blah. And they're like, just talking about like random stuff about what are you going to do? What kind of car do you drive? Just stuff that I'm like, oh, really? And then I'm like, don't you guys want to ask me some doctrine questions? And they're like, and they just go on about other stuff. Don't you guys think you want to ask me some questions about doctrine? No, and they just keep going. Finally, I'm like, I'm going to tell you something about my doctrine. Hold on right here. And so channeling Duck Dynasty apparently. And so Jack, hey Jack. So I just share with them a little bit. I had already spoke for 3 weeks, and I'm sure that's probably what made them comfortable. I spoke out of 1 Peter, and there's a lot of salvation, redemption, resurrection, understanding that's in there that people can glean. And so. Before we go into like what's happening this week, is there anything that I missed that you want to share?
Well, one thing that was kind of awesome is we got a call to come down and meet with them, and we had set the date for the 23rd. Well, that was 2 weeks out because we had a couple engagements before we could go down and meet with them. And we just decided that we were obviously praying about these things, but we decided that we were going to be specific. Like, okay, God, when we go and we sit down with them, I want to know what your will is here, and I want to know and not second guess myself. So I said, okay, God, I'm going to pray in the area of youth ministry, because we have been there and done that, and we know youth ministry can get territorial and not just from
not that we were or anything, but I'm just saying.
And so and there's this young woman who was doing youth down there, and my prayer was just, God, that you would open the door that we could be involved with the youth, and that the youth would be part of the church, because so many times in churches, youth are just, there's the youth group and here's the rest of the church, and I wanted to be able to be involved and help minister to her who is, teaching the kids, and just be there and be able to help. And so my prayer was that, God, that you would open that door, and that you would make it abundantly clear that that is a area that there's going to be no contention. And so
during the search committee thing,
You can tell.
Oh, I was just trying to make sure they understand where
And so we go and sit down on the 23rd, and one of the first things they share with us is that the youth minister is being called to a church in Southern California. So I was like, okay, God.
That's pretty clear.
I didn't ask
Apparently.
to be a part of, like, the youth director. I just wanted to.
we took that as pretty clear. It's like, no guessing. You should know what I'm trying to tell you here because look. And so, I gave Heidi a hard time because of that, because it's like, thanks. Now I got to teach the youth too. Thanks. So, but it's been okay. We've gone another couple of Thursdays, and they're a great group. We love them, and they're just wonderful. And there's about 6 or 7 that come on Thursdays, and then only one right now comes on Sundays because there just hasn't been anything for them. So that we'll hope to change. Anyway, all through all this, before we get to the end here, through all this, I've noticed that in terms of the stuff that I have done, my wife and I, we don't deserve the service that we're allowed to do with God. And it's not because of my goodness or how awesome I am. It's just because of what God chooses to do.
Amen.
And I feel that everybody needs to know that. I think it would prevent people from being worried about pride and problems with themselves and with each other. Because I think that if we understand that God lifts us and holds us and moves us into our positions,
Amen.
that it just doesn't matter. But we like to poke at each other and mess with each other. But none of us are worthy to do anything we do for God. He just gives it to us. That's what Oh, no, I'm tripping. So, anyway.
I hope you don't mind we're sharing.
So, I just want you to know that this is the story of 2 people who don't deserve to be serving God, and yet we are. And I want you to see that because that's the boasting part. It's a God who goes above and beyond for people that don't deserve any of Him. And that goes for anybody. It doesn't matter where you're serving or how you're serving. And it's not because, we get to become something at a church that God has served or done something for us and we get to boast. Everybody here, I don't care what you're doing, gets to boast in the Lord. Gets to, is how I would say it, gets to. And so, today, we've gone on for two weeks, and this is the second week. And, we've been concerned. We're far away from the church at Galt, about 43 miles. And I was concerned with my ability of time there. I was concerned with what they wanted me to do and what I could also offer.
It's bivocational.
It's bivocational. I would be keeping my job because they can't afford to hire a pastor. Last Sunday we had 35, I was told, which is okay to me. But it means that there's going to be some split between myself and the church, and whether they're okay with that and how much they're okay with and all that stuff. And it really, really concerned me. And I was good with it for a long time because of the fact that God really, like Heidi said, He answered all our prayers specifically. Not just that one she mentioned, but others that we have not mentioned. Specifically to the point where I'm like, I know. And then there was some stuff brought to my attention where there are some people that believe that whoever takes the pastorate there should be serving 3 to 4 days a week. And I said, okay, no, I don't know if I can do that. I told you what I could do, worst case. And if you look at what I've been doing already, you've seen that my worst case, I haven't even stuck with that. I've done more. I've been coming down there on Thursdays when I told you I wasn't going to be able to. Every Thursday. From 5 o'clock, I leave my house, and I drive down there by God's grace, because I'm getting up at 4:30 in the morning so that I can work 10 hours and still be able to go down to the church. By God alone, we get down there, and we stay there until about 8:30 and drive home. Our kids have to sleep in the car. That's what God does. And I've been doing that because of God's desire that He's put on myself and on my wife. Anyway, it started to concern me. And I spoke with the Lord, and I talked to Heidi about this, and I said, God, if you want me to have this, and you want the church to remember that what they said they agreed on, then I believe that in your will, as you've been speaking to me, that you could make it be 100%. And And then I started thinking, I was a little worried by that. I'm like, what happens, Lord, if can I trust you enough that if there's one no, could I still say no? Could I trust you enough to do that, or am I about myself? I was worried about that. I told her that today. I'm like, I don't know if I can do that. It's weird. It kind of looks dumb. One no vote, and you're going to be like, nope, I can't do it. So, just like God has typically done with me, so we're at the church, today, and I speak, and then we have a question and answer time, which we spoke about. Pastor Matt RB is like, so, what do you think about a pastor and drinking?
So, what do you think about a pastor?
So it's funny, anyway, I'll go ahead and share this because it's funny. So I shared with them, in 1 Timothy that talks about a pastor not being given to wine. And I know what Pastor Mac RB thinks about that. But I told him, I said, you know what it says 2 chapters later? You have Paul talking to a pastor saying, drink some wine. So, but I'll tell you this, as a pastor serving, I would choose on my own free will to not drink. But I want to tell you that's my opinion because I see something different in Scripture. And Mac was okay with it. But, so that's how I answered the question. Anyway, so we go through the whole thing. We have some more questions. Everything's great, fine, Danny, whatever. No one seems to have an issue with it. They vote, and my wife and I, because only we know at that place what I've decided with the Lord. Only we know. Sure enough, the vote was 33-1. 33-1. And I had chosen with Heidi, in the Lord, what I would tell them is that with the Lord, I would not take a permanent position there unless it was 100%. But what I will do is if you choose, I will be an interim pastor until such time as you guys can agree, either on somebody else or on me, whatever. And they accepted that. They switched the vote, they changed the definition, and they allowed the 33-1 to be for interim pastor vote. So I am voted in as pastor there, but it's not permanent. It's not because I chose to not take it because of my agreement and my understanding of what God asked me to do. And I feel that it was another step of Him making sure that I knew that He knew what He was doing. I'm not worried about it. God at some point can do anything with that church or can do anything with me. The sad thing was because of my choice to say I'm not going to take the permanent. I would like to take an interim. I did end up calling a few people because some people, it's funny how people get, I've only been there 5 weeks. And you would think that I was their best, most awesome, favorite friend, pastor guy. And some people went off, they ran off. And I called a couple people to make sure that they knew what I was really doing. So they understood. And they understood, and everything's okay. But I tell you, it was a tough thing. I was like, wow, really? Really, you're going to ask me to stick out with what you told me on one person? You couldn't have it be 5 or 10? Because then I don't look like a moron. But now, one guy called us like, you had 33 out of 1. That's almost unanimous in a Baptist church. I'm like, I know, but like my wife and I talked about, one thing that church realizes, because of God and His plan, was I will only follow God's will. Only. Even if it's 1 vote, I will only follow God's will. That's what I've learned through all of this. Because it's never been wrong. Never. And I refuse to go any other way. Because every time I do, it's wrong. I remember reading a book, I think it was Christian Life by Watchman Nee. He says sinners are like bulls in china closets. Especially when we try and serve God. We're all running around like we've got some kind of weird ADHD and we're knocking over everything. Because whenever we serve God without doing His will and His way through His Spirit, we knock stuff over. Because we're in that area. We cannot do it. So anyway, all said and done, they did vote me in as the interim pastor. Probably to end up being in 6 months another vote for me to be the permanent pastor. But I am totally okay with what is happening. It does not bother me one bit, and I told them it doesn't change anything for me. I'm still going to come down there and work with the youth. We're still going to try and get Team Kid going. We're still going to have a Sunday night service. That stuff will happen, God willing.